Yeah. So someone gave. All right. So Otto gave this. Do we want to do this real quick? This will take no time at all.
So that was a fucking lie.
All right. S tier waiver. Next tier below Sanzong, Enkidu, and Ozzy. I would put them in that order, by the way. There's not really gonna be many F tier. I don't know that there'll be any F tier, to be honest with you, because these are all true SSRs, right? They all matter a ton. That being said, I don't recommend taking Osakabe Hime with their SSR ticket, especially if you're a newer player. Like, just don't. They have not done her right. They have not fixed her. They know it. They don't care. She's just there as like a waifu thing, you know? And it sucks because I really like Osakabe Hime. And I liked using her like back in the day, but nowadays there's no point to. What's up, Andy Moore? How's it going? In the next tier, I would put your reliable and pretty OP AoE units, right? So Achilles, Anastasia is going to be there. Scheherazade, believe it or not, is actually going to be up there as well, especially with the advent of Castoria. A lot of people are suggesting Tamamo. I simply do not. I'm sorry. I really don't. I don't. There are some hard truths to accept about Tamamo. I love Tamamo. I need to, like, I'm going to make that clear. I need to make that very clear. But there are some hard truths to accept about Tamamo, okay? Hard truth number one. You are going to spend 30 bones just to... You're not going to tell me to stop, dude. Fuck you. 30 bones on 3rd Ascension and 45 bones per skill to get to number 5, to level 5. To level 5? This many bones? Are you insane? This is unacceptable. All right? Sorry, level 6, right? So to level her skills just to get to the first cooldown reduction. It's insane. It's insane. This is absolutely not recommended by me in any means. No way. No way. No way. Not only do you have to go through 45 because you need her 1st and 3rd skill very high. Not only do you have to go through that, it's 24 pages per. It's 30 seeds per. This is insane. Under no circumstances do I recommend anyone take Tamamo with this SSR ticket unless you have anyone. To say that expensive means quality is foolhardy because Castoria is coming. You are going to borrow a Castoria more quickly than you are going to level and skill this Tamamo with your SSR ticket. Do what you want. Do what you want. A lot of you guys, you scroll up here, you see boobs, and you're like, oh my god, this is the one. This is the one I have to have. You see those boobs? You see those ears? I have to... No, dude. Put your fucking brain back up here and out of your pants, alright? I'm telling you right now. People are going to fuck themselves over, and they're not even going to realize it for a long time by taking Tamamo with the SSR ticket. It's just... It's not recommended at all, alright? I don't. Unless you have literally 90% of these other ones. If you have like 90% of these other ones, or you're just like a whale who just takes who you want because you'll go get anyone else that you want any other time, then don't do it. Like, just don't. It's not complicated. This is... You guys are trying to make this complicated, and it is not complicated. It is not complicated. The sheer amount of materials you need for a servant who requires, not like should, requires her 1st and 3rd skill to be max level, like, it's insane to me. So this is another thing that people tend to like not understand for some stupid reason about Tamamo, okay? On her 3rd skill, you go through all that investment to get a 50% arts up. Now, is that great? Cool, yeah, for 3 turns, that's awesome. You are gonna forget the fact that you have access to a Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart at 44%. Let's take 1 second to look at his materials. Take 1 second to look at his materials. Compare them to her materials. Okay? Compare them to her materials. Is it a 1 turn? Yeah. But if you think that it's worth it to use all those materials to get 2 more turns when you can hit that at level 8? It takes level 8 just to equal what he does for 1 turn? You're out of your minds. You're out of your minds, okay? Now you're going to try and tell yourself, well, you know what? It lasts for longer, and it's nice to have that. Look, you're going to pick up Castoria on your friends list. You're just gonna do that. You're all gonna do that. It doesn't matter if you don't want to. You're gonna do it anyway. 50% arts up and an invincible. Not to mention extra damage to threat to humanity. This is not complicated. It's not complicated. I love Tamamo. I do. I do. She's a great character. Great story. Great art. Everything. Right? But from an SSR ticket for new players, I cannot under any circumstances recommend that a new player take Tamamo. No circumstances whatsoever. Especially if you're free to play. If you plan on whaling for the rest of your life, fine. But you'll probably get one anyway. You'll probably get a Tamamo spook anyway. I just don't. Don't do it. Just don't, man. Somebody asked about the upgrade. It just adds a heal. It adds a heal. What do you fucking do? It adds a heal. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. Alright? So, do what you want to do, but, like, good God. The NP gauge reduction is whatever, but this is where it gets better, is the NP damage up. It's 20 to 30%. Again, you can get that level of damage addition in a lot of different other servants. If you go look at someone named Bart. So with Bartholomew Roberts on his first skill, are you getting a 30% NP damage up? No, you're getting 17%, but you're also getting 17% attack up. She does give attack up. This unlocks some multiplicative damage right off the bat, right? Does she have arts up and NP damage up? Yes. But again, you are going to have access to those multiplicative buffs in your friends list. I guarantee it. Either the day Castoria comes out or within a week. It's just a hard truth that people have to accept. I know that some people don't want to hear about Castoria anymore. I know some people don't want to hear about their other servant getting shit on or reduced in tier or whatever. It's a hard truth to accept. It's just gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Listen, my main account will have a max everything Castoria the day she's released. It's gonna happen. A spade is a spade, guys. It's a hard truth. All right. So I see a lot of people talk about Tamamo. I don't put her anywhere near up here. I don't. Not even close. Not even close. This is a long-term game, guys. This is a long-term game. You do not download this game and play it for 2 weeks and then you're done with everything. You will download this game and you will be catching up and playing things and getting new things unlocked and doing interludes and rank ups for at least a year. At least a year. Veteran players like to talk about content slowdown and how there's less to do, and that's totally understandable, but as you guys have probably figured out by now, I don't do simply recommendations and content for veteran players. Like, I like to keep all, everybody in mind, right? So, I don't put Tamamo out there. I'll leave it at that, right? After that, you do have this tier right here of your farmers. Karna can go there as well. Mordred would actually go probably here because she not only has AoE, but she can crit hard in the interim as well. I would put her there as well. Yeah, so the next tier down, there's nothing wrong with these servants. Nothing wrong with them. Like Shangyu, there's not anything necessarily wrong. There's nothing wrong with Artemis. There's nothing inherently wrong with Altera. They're just a little bit less accessible. A little bit less accessible. The only thing that keeps Karna from going down to that tier is because his battery is, correct me if I'm wrong, flat. It's a flat battery. So as soon as you have Karna unlocked on that third skill, it is. It's a flat 25% battery. Yeah. So, can you just like replay? Thanks. All right. Flat battery, star gen up, which is whatever, but the crit damage up is 40%, which is nice. Buster up, NP damage up. They're only one turn. Honestly, this is a pretty middling skill. It's a pretty middling skill. And the 4-star are on the first skill here. Debuff resistance down, whatever. NP seal, whatever. He doesn't have the best kit in the world. When you get down to his NP, the 300-500 was standard. Divine, though, has always been nice on him. And the EX is their Buster reduced resistance right there. The NP is what keeps him, by the way. The NP is what keeps him on this next tier up from these, right? Artemis is not bad. I saw someone just mention Artemis. The only thing I don't like about Artemis is that she's not named Artemis. They called her Orion. I hate that. We have an Orion. We have an Artemis. This is Artemis. All right? This is Artemis. I wish they would just have called it that. She has a big defense up for 1 turn at 50%. 20% attack up for 3 turns. That is a flat skill. We love flat skills. They're basically like a little bit of a cheat. And she increases her debuff resistance by 50% for 3 turns. This doesn't look like a great skill on paper because it doesn't fit into this like meta mentality of give me battery, give me multiplicative, give me... No, this is good. This is a very, very good skill. On her second skill, damage up against male enemies 100%. When you talk about increased damage against a certain niche, and you talk about 100%, like we're in Skahak territory as far as like impact goes, right? You love to see that. It is only 1 turn, but if you've used her in fights before, like you know that that 1 turn is a hell of a turn. Not to mention the fact that you can definitely access lower cooldowns due to a Mystic Cup. She does have an evade for 1 turn. The crit damage up to 34% is kind of weird, but I understand it. It's not bad. It'd be different if this was like a 17% or like 22% or some other weird number. But this is a weird number that's high. This is a weird number that's high, right? Her passives aren't that great. That doesn't matter. But her NP is where things really start to come together. Single target, 900 to 1500 damage, pretty standard. Reduces their attack by 20%. That 20% on top of this first skill. Defense up by 50%. You can probably just take an NP to the face with her. You could probably just take the NP to the face with her. It's pretty good. And then she has a chance to reduce their NP gauge by 1. But as we move up, she just does it. She just does it. So the chance goes away and becomes a guaranteed NP gauge reduction. And then she reduces their critical attack chance. I'm not a fan of that, never will be. The damage scales up nicely, 1200 to 1800%. That's actually really good. It's really, really good. When you couple the attack down, the NP gauge down, the arts with 5 hits and 2 hit arts cards, granted she only has 1 hit on them. It is not the easiest thing in the world to do an NP arts loop with her unless you've got some stars or some outside help going on. But she hits hard enough that you're probably not going to need it too much. Not to mention her fact that her star absorption is pretty good at 153. We just saw a very high one in Ozymandias at 209. This is nothing to scoff at, you know? So all of that combined, Artemis is not bad. There's an obvious missing link in this kit. She has access to high damage. She doesn't have quick access to her NP, but she has arts cards. She has an arts NP. It's available. It's available, right? So it's not impossible to get. It's not as if we're dealing with a triple buster deck. You know what I mean? Like it's entirely conceivable that you will get to her NP without needing too much of another battery on her in a reasonable amount of time, right? So she's not the worst thing in the world. Coupled with the fact that her worst requirement is the 48 dust, she doesn't need to be 10-10-10 to be effective. In fact, I would argue that this skill right here should be your highest one due to the damage output. But the third one, it's okay. You don't need to go do more crit damage with her, and the evade doesn't scale. It's just a cooldown. Not to mention the fact that the attack is flat here, and the defense is the only thing that scales as part of this. It's a pretty accessible kit. Pretty accessible kit. So she's not bad. She's not going to be up here with them because of the accessibility aspect, right? Like, these are just some very, very accessible servants. Achilles ranks higher than maybe most might put him because of the fact that he has target focus and a 5-turn defense. He does not only have the invincible, but the 5-turn defense is an overlooked aspect of his kit. The second skill here is 2 attacks, 5... Sorry, it's 3-turn defense, 5-turn invincible. My bad. 2 attack, 5-turn invincible, and the defense being 10 to 20%, the 5-turn cooldown. That's my fault. So, conceivably speaking, you could have your invincibles still on him, have his cooldown go away, and then be able to use it as soon as they are burned That requires some taunts around him, obviously, or some incredible luck. First skill is a 30% crit up and a 30% quick up. Pretty nice, not bad. 5-turn cooldown on that, 5-turn cooldown on this, and 6 turns on this, but it's the battery. He does have target focus for 1 turn. NP gain. The NP gain, honestly, is pretty shit. It's not good. You will barely even notice it. This is a game that has NP gain skills on people like Lancelot and Mash that will blow you away. Leonidas, too. This just doesn't really tip the scales between 20 and 30%, right? But the battery's great. At 24%, level 5, you can use an imaginary element of MLB and get to his NP on the first turn. With all of that taken in mind, he's never gotten an NP upgrade because, in my opinion, he doesn't need it. It's standard 600 through 1000% early scaling on a quick AoE. His quick up goes first, though. As you can see, he has a lot of access to quick up across his kit in the NP and on the first skill as well. So, he's just a solid all-around servant. The reason I rank him fairly high on this tier list, as you can see on that 3rd tier right there, among the likes of Drake and others, is because of the utility across the board. Yes, he has a battery, he has a target focus, he has invincible, he has high defense, or increased defense, I should say. He can buff himself. He gives stars. Like, there's a lot to like about him here. He does require a lot of proofs, but he's an SSR at this point. It's not Tamamo levels or anything like that. He also has a great bond CE, so if you're a newer player and you're looking for a servant that's going to be ride or die for you, no pun intended, for a long time, it's going to pay off for you because this is a great bond CE. Not a lot of them are great. This is great. His NP damage is increased by 30%, and he gives the entire party invincibility for 1 attack over 3 turns. There's a lot of utility and a lot of things to like about Achilles. Now, is he going to be in this top tier or the 2nd tier? No, he's not. It's okay. But is he down here? Yes, he's at a very good spot that players can look at for accessibility purposes anyway. Obviously, when it comes to accessibility and farming, especially for the rider class, Drake is the creme de la creme for the SSR tier. She's got the massive battery on her 3rd skill, 30 to 50%, ignore invincible for 3 turns, 10 stars bomb, no buffs needed on the 1st and 3rd skill because it's just that good, right? NP damage up, attack up 17%. This is with Bartholomew. As far as Vorge of the Storm quality, it's really good. The 2nd skill used to be pretty bad. NP gen up 18 to 45%. It's just, the only reason it was bad is because you didn't really need it. You didn't really need it. If you were doing 3-turn farm comps with her, Spartacus, Arash, and her, depending on the classes against you, like, you were going to be fine. You were going to be fine. Now, it gets really, really broken good after the upgrade. And it's because of Buster Up and Ignore Defense for 3 turns. So for 3 turns, she has Ignore Invincible and Ignore Defense. As in, unless you're Castoria in front of her, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt. When it has this amount of utility, as far as Ignore Invincible and Ignore Defense, that's when you start considering taking an AoE servant like this to a single target fight if you have no other better options. If I don't have other riders that I want to take for a single target boss fight in which a rider will shine, I don't have a problem taking her after these buffs because she can hit through whatever and she can hit hard. Attack up, NP damage up, Buster up. She has full access to 3 of the 4 multiplicative damage modifiers. Go down to her NP. Wild Hunt does have an NP upgrade, 300 to 500% standard scaling. AoE gains crit stars. It's a good amount. It's 20, honestly. 20 crit stars is really good, especially for a rider. Her star weight is right up there with Ozzy at 208. His was 209. Rank A+, buffs it up to 400 to 600. That's all she really, like, that's all you can really do with her. She's a very complete servant, in my opinion. She's not out there to, like, be a soloist and survive for long periods of time. She's not going to heal your part. She doesn't give a shit about any of that, all right? She's there to walk onto the field and fuck everything up, and that's what she wants to do, and she does it well. As far as when you get those upgrades, the NP upgrade, let's see here, 14 required, is a long way away. So 23, August of 2023 for that one, and then this is already out, I think. I'm pretty sure this is already out. I could be wrong. She's here for bitch looping, yeah. I don't know when this came out, but I'm pretty sure this has been out for a while. Yeah, so. The MP one's been out for a while. Okay, yeah. But anyway, so you'll be waiting for 6th anniversary. There's a ton of incredible buffs at 6th anniversary. Some of them are outright broken. The oh god, dude, don't get me started. Don't get me started. The Arreskigo buff is broken good. The Drake one is broken good. The Jalter one's really, really nice to have, honestly. But the Alter one, broken good. Leonidas is really cool. His buff's really cool. All of them, honestly, are good in some form or another, but, like, some of them just kind of, like, shatter expectations. Oh, Alter is one of the best units in the entire game now. And that's, like, regardless of class, regardless of card color. Yeah, so Alters is a ridiculous buff strip, defensive buff strip on his NP. It's one of my favorite NPs to use on the JP server right now. It used to be attack and defense up on overcharge 30%, which was pretty nice. 600 to 1,000%. Again, pretty nice. 12 hits. Cool. Great. Awesome. He's Buster, so you don't really care too much, but that's fine, right? Then he strips away all defensive buffs. That's all defensive buffs. Evade, invincible, Castoria's protection, defense up, damage, whatever you want to call it. It's all gone. Have a good one, Reginald. All gone. And then he does even more damage than what he used to do. So I am pretty biased, but one of my favorite units in the game got even better. So yeah. That being said, though, he's not on this ticket, so that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that's why Drake sits firmly at the top right here, not only because of her current utility, but also for the future. Actually, I would put Anastasia over Achilles. I'd put her Anastasia over Achilles. Not just because of Castoria, but because of the healthy battery and ignore invincible capability. Oh, okay, thank you so much for showing me something that I didn't want to see. All right. So she has ignore invincible for 1 turn, arts up, and then debuff resist down. The debuff resist down only matters because you want to reduce their defense sealer skills, right? Second and third skills are fine, but like you're really only going to be stunning them. You increase the party's attack for 3 turns and reduce enemy's attack for 3 turns on this skill. It's not a huge amount, but it's there, right? The stun chance is only 40 to 60%. Like, that's okay. You will need the debuff resist down, but you don't need it to be level 10. And then on that third skill as well as the massive 30 to 50% battery. It is a high cooldown, but it's okay. It's okay. She has great passives in my opinion with her arts up 12% and then the debuff success rate by 10%. That's an often overlooked part of her kit. So with the third skill, 40 to 70% is the new thing. 50 to 70%, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay. But the thing is, you don't really worry too much about the cooldown. You don't really worry too much about things like the stun because she's going to be out there to use her arts, AoE, 4-hit, and P to pretty much disable the enemy. Like, it's pretty damn good. A huge misconception that I don't understand to this day, I'll never understand it, is that, like, some percentage of the player base thinks that it's somehow reasonable to take AoE servants, or not reasonable, but like more attractive to take AoE servants into a single target fight. No one does that. There's a reason no one does that, because you don't need to. You don't need to. So when we talk about things like what is the most content in the game, it's farming. So what's the most utility and usage on an AoE servant? It's not things like stun. It's not things like debuff resist down. Like, these are just not, they're straight up not going to matter in comparison to the rest of what these kinds of servants should bring to the table. So for party attack up, that's great. NP gauge, we love that. And then the arts up. It's 1 turn because she just needs 1 turn. Yeah, no one does that, Agent Seraphim. I don't know why people keep talking about that shit. But it's whatever. So the damage is fine. It's got good hits. She's pretty solid. One thing, though, is that she will make you weep yourself to sleep every night in bullets. 72. 72. The reason that matters so much is because of that third skill. You do want the 50% battery. Not so much on the second skill, and it's okay on the first skill. The arts up is nice, but that third skill is going to hurt. The third skill is going to hurt. It's not that AoEs are not viable in single target, it's that there's no reason to. There's no reason to. We have a single target in every class. We have a single target in every class that is accessible for a lot of players. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, so this is one of the sadder Bond CEs, by the way. So if you don't know the history of Anastasia, then maybe this doesn't mean anything to you. But if you do know her story and like what happened to her and her family, this is heartbreaking to see. Like, this Bond CE is legitimately extremely depressing. I'm not gonna I'll let people like discover it for themselves if they want, but like, it's called OTMA. It's the first, I think it's the first letters, right? Yeah, the first name. Oh my god, I'm not gonna go into it. I'm not gonna go into it. It's really sad. It's really sad. But anyway, yeah, so she'll sit right here, pretty accessible. I do put Mordred over Artoria these days. The value between NPs is pretty good for both. Yeah, it was pretty sad. It was pretty sad. You find it insulting that she needs bullets. The only reason she needs bullets is because of that Lost Belt. It's the Lost Belt item, and there are other servants in that Lost Belt who also benefit. You know what I mean? But I understand. Scheherazade's up there. Karna's up there as well. Shang Yu's great, but unfortunately he's... I'm on section 18 of Doobie. He's great. Artemis is great. Altera's great. I love all of them. I really do. I like using all three of these. Shang Yu may not have like a huge battery or whatever, but like he's got a lot of utility, and his first skill upgrade is very nice to help him carve out more of a niche. Altera provides a lot of utility in a lot of different ways. And again, although she does not have a battery, this doesn't mean that she's bad. In fact, her first skill upgrade removes all enemies' defensive buffs and applies party NP damage up by 20%. Like, that's huge. That's really, really nice to just strip away all enemies' defensive buffs. There is a such thing as an esports Altera. I've seen it one time on the Japanese player's Twitter account. I don't know that I'd recommend it, but this dude had like NP 17 Altera. He was just all about Altera for some reason. On the second skill, it's more about the HP recovery. Increasing own offensive debuff resist is like, that's okay, I guess. But then she has the star absorption, which is pretty nice. Third skill, attack up, gain crit stars, helps the second skill hit harder, which means you can do NP Buster to fairly healthy success. Her NP went from a 3 to 500% standard scaling damage or defense reduction to 400 to 600, and then increased defense reduction. When it comes to her mats, it's a little steep, to put it lightly. It's a little steep, to put it very lightly. It's like 64, I think, or 62 bones per skill. Now, the reason that's like easy to like laugh about and digest is that you really do not need any of these at level 10. You don't. None of them are a battery. None of them are just like insanely necessary to be at level 10. If she's your favorite, cool. If you have all these materials, cool, yeah. But I've used my Altera at, I'm pretty sure, like 666 for a long time, and then like 9s, and then I think maybe I bumped her up to 10s because I like her. But there's no real need to completely max her and go into that level of bones, right? So she is down here. It's not because she's bad at all or anything. It really is not. She's totally fine, and not someone that I recommend against taking. I don't necessarily recommend them completely, but you know, it is what it is. I also am going to go ahead and slot Napoleon up here as well towards the top. In fact, you could make the argument pretty easily that Napoleon should be a tier higher than that, so let's take a look at him. Napoleon has a wonderful niche on his NP. Extra damage against divine enemies. There are a lot of divine enemies, especially as you are playing through the Lost Belts. Lots of divine enemies here. Lots and lots and lots of divine, like a lot, like a whole lot. All right. So when it comes to Napoleon, not only does he have the anti-divine niche, he has a nice upgrade as well that gains 20 stars. Increased damage, but he gives 20 stars as well. Moving into his kit here, party attack up, own attack up further by 20%, so he has a 40% attack up for one turn on himself, and then 20% for the remaining 2 turns. Second skill, MP damage up 20%, and then star generation rate, that's okay. Then you have a 20 to 30% battery, but an ignore invincible for 3 turns, and then he'll gain stars every turn. If the ignore invincible for 3 turns sounds familiar, it should. Shang Yu also has it and as an AoE SSR in this ticket availability. That's pretty cool to have. So I think we will move Napoleon up. In fact, I will move him right there. Not above Artoria Mordred, but maybe above Scheherazade. Maybe above Scheherazade. Scheherazade is one of the most overhated servants in the game, in my opinion. Comfy triple arts deck. She increases her arts performance by 30% for 1 turn. That's before her upgrade. She then has a battery. She needed it. I'm not gonna lie to you, she needed it, right? 20 to 30%. Second skill is she increases her defense 20 to 40%. And then she has a chance to charm male enemies for 1 turn. I would not be surprised if this got another buff in the future. On her third skill, it used to just be gut status 1 time, and then 1 king enemy's attack reduced down for 1 turn only. Is what it is. And then now she gives the party gut status, except for herself, 1 time over 2 turns. I still don't like this skill, by the way. I think it's a little bit insulting to give her a 1 time over 2 turn party guts that comes back with 500 HP. It just is, it's whatever. Again, when we talk about the usage and utility and implementation of SSR, not only SSR, AoE servants in your usage, this just is not necessary. This is not what would have helped her out the most. So it's whatever. The number of times that people have needed a arts caster to provide them as the DPS with a party-wide guts as well, it's not there. Especially for such a low HP recovery and a restrictive turn requirement. Like, the number of times that you're going to find yourself needing, hey, my arts AoE right here servant, gosh, I'm in a situation where I need them to give my party guts 1 time over these next 2 turns and only bring them back with 500 HP. It's just not there. She increases her NP damage by 20% for 1 turn on her NP. She had 450 to 750. She now has 600 to 900. She reduces their debuff resistance by 50% for 1 time over 3 turns. The biggest thing, though, is she deals extra damage to king enemies. 200%, which is very good on the first overcharge. The reduction of debuff resistance, again, if we're looking at what she's going to do to the enemy, the chance to reduce the gauge, the chance to charm, I mean, we're talking about an AoE servant here. So, again, she's up here, but it's because of the fact that she can just outright destroy king enemies. We've talked about on this same subathon servants that you should take to a king enemy fight who can do great damage, very good damage. When it comes to those kinds of enemies, though, like, are there a lot of them? Yes. However, if I'm taking Scheherazade against king enemies, I don't want to take her against Morgan. I don't want to take her against that Ricardo, quote unquote, if that were to happen. There is a Bazet fight in an event later on that this doesn't really matter too much. But there's a lot of these that, like, I just don't really need to take her more than, you know what I mean? More than others. And some of them would be outright terrible for her to go into. Odysseus, Ozymandias, especially Ozymandias. You're not going to take her into that fight. I don't care who you are. The rest of them are extremely situational. Penthesilea is another one. You could, kind of go cutesy with that. You could use her against Maeve if you really want to die fast. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of rider king enemies. You're not going to use her against the Ivan the Terrible fight. Like, you just are not going to do that. So you start to look at the actual, like, quantity and servants that this applies to, enemies that this applies to. It's just not there. She's absolutely not a CQ servant instead of a farmer, in my opinion. I just don't agree with that. And it's because of the massive boost in utility that she gets with Castoria. Never have I ever in my entire life thought to myself that I should bring Scheherazade to a challenge quest. She's a great farmer, and you love to see that. You really do. She was a great farmer before Castoria. It was just a little bit more of a smaller margin of error, in my opinion. But yeah, challenge quest. You disagree about king enemies being niche? I mean, look how many of these are riders. What is the... I don't understand how you could... She has outright class disadvantage against many of these. Whatever, man. Whatever. Listen, if you guys want to go pick Scheherazade and think that she's like top tier or some shit, fine. When it comes to like the general usage across accounts for most players in this game, they're just not gonna take those kinds of concessions. Yeah, it's niche doesn't mean it doesn't work, by the way. They're not gonna make those kinds of concessions because there's no reason to. Like, there's just no reason to go out of your way. To go out of your way to do those things. Now, it's not like she's down in C tier. Like, I didn't put her low. She's above Karna, and I stand by that. She's not bad by any means. I think she was overhated. I said that from the start. And so, you know, if you're looking at who to take on your SSR ticket, she's up there. If you want to take Castoria stuff, she's better for that than Anastasia. Even if I have Castoria, regardless of if I have Castoria or not, I'm going to take Anastasia to my general farming needs. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, damage is not a concern. In most of the meta comps, whether that's Quick Arts or Buster, like, you're not worried about damage. You're just simply not. Awoku did her good, yeah. So, Dragoness, this is the last SSR ticket that we will get for this year. On 6th anniversary, there is another SSR ticket, which is actually, in my opinion, a little bit better. It opens up a little bit more viability. We'll take a quick glance at that. FGO SSR tickets, 21? There is a second one, yeah. So it's not just this, it's the 6th anniversary free SSR ticket. Let's see here. Alright, so I guess I'll have to type that in. But on that ticket, our Japanese account took Coup Alter, and it has been an amazing addition. All right, so there is the is this like a bare bones one? Other campaign. All right, so here's the SSR ticket. If you clear Fuyuki, you can obtain one SSR. You're going to see a lot of repeat names here. You're going to see some new ones, and that matters a ton. Coup Alter's in here. Assassin Lee is in here. Ketz is in here. Lancer Artoria. Tesla. That might be it. There might be one more that I missed or something like that. But regardless, Maeve. These are some pretty impactful additions. Right? Especially with Coup Alter's upgrade. This came to be called the Coup Alter ticket because if you didn't have a Coup Alter, the upgrade he gets is like ridiculous. It's extremely attractive. Yeah. So there is another one. I think that it is no strings attached, right? You don't have to do the whole bond thing. Include Fuyuki, 1 SSR, no strings attached. There you go, no strings attached. This also came with, again, his upgrade. Pretty damn good. So, regardless, you do get another one. It's these and more. So, moving on, I'm going to put Arjuna up here as well. There is something that people forget with Arjuna. He, again, is overhated. Now, a lot of servant hate is carryover from early on where spooks were more common, but he's actually a really good servant. Triple Arts deck, his first skill is debuff immunity for 5 turns. 5 turns, 6 turn cooldown. This dude can solo the Uoku challenge quest. He can solo the Uoku challenge quest. You don't give a shit about the star generation rate. It's nice, it's cool. But this right here, this is top tier. Debuff immunity, total debuff immunity for 5 turns, 6 turn cooldown. On the second skill, it's a flat gauge. We always love those. HP recovery per turn for 5 turns. Stars every turn for 5 turns. 10 turn cooldown. Then we got a massive, massive buff. 25% flat gauge, 10% NP gauge every turn, 5 turns. And then still an 8 turn cooldown, but now it's a little more digestible because it's only 3 turns of downtime. What's up, Leonard Glad? The 25% battery is nice, just like Karna, because you can use an MLB imaginary element on him and immediately use his NP. Love to see that. On his third skill, it's a mono burst. It's 1 turn. It's only 30 and 20%. That's exceptionally low in my opinion. I understand the whole multiplicative aspect. However, to me, it doesn't do enough. It doesn't do enough. His NP used to be damage to all enemies with a chance to kill them and a further chance to kill divine enemies, and then he would reduce their defense. At A+, though, all of these effects are juiced up except the defense, right? So defense was 20% before, 20% now. The chance to kill was 50 and 80, or sorry, 30 and 50. It's now 50 and 80. There are a lot of divine mobs in the game. It's not like a OP list, like it's not, you know, ridiculous. But there are quite a few. And if you're looking to like find a reason for him to just absolutely cheese something, you can use him extensively in Babylonia. Extensively, especially towards the end. Extensively towards the end of Babylonia because he can instant kill the Lahmu almost. I think it's 100% of the time because they have such low death resist. It may not be 100% of the time, I'm not sure. But it's extremely reliable against the Lahmu, which were difficult enemies for a lot of players. So, yeah, he has a very good chance to kill on his NP there, which was a lot of fun to use. It's a lot of fun to use that niche there. Even without the niche, he's solid. He has a battery, you know, he has a mono burst, but he is one of those servants that, like, if you take into the Uoku challenge quest, you're gonna think he's incredible and a god, and you're gonna love him. You're gonna want to grail him and all this other shit. If you take him against Lahmu, you're gonna love him. You're gonna want to grail him. You're gonna think he's a god and all this other shit. And then you're just, all right, thanks, buddy. Go rest for a year and a half. I have nothing against Arjuna. In fact, I think he has some of the better outfits and arts in the game. Except for this is weird to me. But do I put him above Altera, Artemis, Shangyu? No, I don't. No, I don't. He's not bad, but I don't necessarily recommend him. It just kind of is what it is. Just kind of is what it is, right? I also do not put him up on the level of a Karna, Scheherazade, Napoleon, etc., 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 right? So that being said, I'm gonna jump down a little bit. So Tamamo is probably right here in my opinion. I understand that's not popular with a lot of you. I don't care. I've given my reasons for it. I stand by them wholeheartedly. There's just not really a good reason for players who need to consider all of these because, listen, if you have most of these servants, you don't need a tier list. Let's call a spade a spade. If you're watching this and you're like, well, I have Waver, I have Ozzy, I have Scheherazade, I have Enkidu, Achilles, I have Drake, I have Artoria. You don't need a tier list. You don't need a tier list. Let's be completely real here. You know you don't need a tier list. But for people who don't have most, if not all of these, I completely stand by these recommendations for those kinds of players. Because if a player does not have most of these servants, I don't think they should take an Arjuna, a Tamamo. I don't think they should take Altera. I love Altera. I do. I love Tamamo. I don't think so. I don't think so. You know what I mean? And that's where it comes from. If someone who has none of these servants says, hey, I'm thinking about taking Osakabe Hime for gameplay reasons, what do you think? I'm gonna say, come here so I can slap you a little bit. don't do that. Don't do it, you know? If it's a waifu thing, sure, yeah, whatever, you know? So moving on from there, Bradamante, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is gonna be a little bit harsh. Bradamante is a more expensive, less capable version of cheaper servants who do the same thing. Arts up, quick up, 30%, that's fine. The second is guts and defense. And then NP gauge is only 10 to 20%. If an NP gauge on a third skill at 10 to 20% for an AoE quick lancer sounds familiar, it's because Parvati exists. Parvati heals, she removes debuffs though, and Parvati costs her own gauge to do that. But, you know, it's whatever. So, down to her NP, AoE, chance to stun, reduce their critical attack chance, which is a waste, and then NP damage up. There's just no reason. There's just no reason. No reason. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and put Bradamante at the D level. She is not worth taking as much as Osakabehime. No. But is she as appealing and as recommended as anyone above her? No. No. This kind of is what it is. I actually would put Europa up at C tier. People try to use Europa for like the wrong things. They try to use her as a direct comparison to people like Achilles and Drake when that's just irresponsible to do. There's a reason she's called SSR Marie. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that she's up there, you know? Nice, Kingdom Hearts boy, what's up? Yeah, so I put her down here. If you need to look at her kit, you probably don't. She's pretty new, but we can do it anyway. She's an yeah, I'd call her an SSR Marie. I'm not the, that's not even like an original thought. That's taken from others. So first skill, invincibility 3 times, which is huge, and debuff resistance for 3 times. Again, also huge. Anytime a skill is time-based and not turn-based, that's big. That's why Kama's Guts is so huge. Second skill is a battery, 20 to 30%, 6 turn cooldown. Pretty bad. They're pretty nice, pretty nice. 30% on the arts and buster, it's whatever. 60% chance to charm, but it's all enemies. It's not reduced to like humanoid or servant. It's all enemies for 1 turn. Defense down, 10 to 20%, which counts as attack up, which means that her second skill is going to give her multiplicity. It's nothing like off the charts, but it is what it is, you know. And then critical attack chance. I just wish this didn't exist. I hate saying those words. It's so bad. She does have riding A+, which is 11%. Problem is 1 quick card. And then on her NP, her defense goes up for 50%. And she gives herself Buster up further for 20%. And she'll deal damage to all enemies. 300 to 500%. That's almost assuredly going to get a buff, even if it's just for damage in the future. That being said, when you look at what she brings to the table, she is an Buster AoE servant whose primary usage and utility and attractiveness is not on her NP. It's on the first skill, second skill, third skill. It's nice that her third skill gives a chance to charm all enemies as opposed to a niche. It's nice that her first skill gives invincibility for 3 times and not like 1 turn or etc. turns. Her debuff resist goes up to a very attractive 100%. And then the battery's the battery. It is what it is. Like, it's got a nice little steroid on it, but this is a battery, you know? The problem is that none of this is gonna like blow you away. None of this is just gonna like absolutely change the game. There are fights where she's situationally extremely effective. And again, it's not because she has an AoE NP. You know, it's just kind of there. That being said, she's not like useless or anything. And if you're in part 1, having a servant like this would be like incredible. Having a servant who has a chance to charm all your enemies, having a servant with a battery who can do AoE damage and have invincible that is not based off of turns but is times and debuff resist. If you're part 1 and you're trotting out a Georgios and a Leonidas, you're going to be able to start getting these ready to stack. If they run out, you have the other one off cooldown. It's nice. Now, that being said, Is it better than literally anyone above her? No. No, it's not. It's not. Her defense down is like 20%? 10%? Yeah, 10% up to 20%. My problem with leveling this skill is that the crit attack chance is worthless. It's 10 to 20%. It's whatever. But the charm chance does not scale. It does not scale. So, is she situationally nice to use? Yes. The deeper into the game you go, you just will use her less. And then at the end, you'll find yourself using her more for, like, meme purposes or going out of your way to create comps for her, like I've done. And it's nice. Like, it's nice to be able to use her. But there's really no, like, big necessary draw towards her. She's only marginally more attractive than Bradamante. And that's because of her first skill that she is, in my opinion. Going on, I would put, let's see here. So, Nightingale is an unfortunate victim of a lot of things. Nightingale is not necessarily bad. She can still solo one of the most disgusting bosses in the game. She is a buster-oriented as far as phase cards go with an arts NP. She's got a ton of utility. Her second skill does increase her survivability in some cases. And her first skill is a nice heal. Third skill is the buster up. Her NP got buffed to give enemy attack down, and then it's also like NP damage down for the enemy, I think. Heal, all this stuff, right? If you're a new player, dear God, do not take Nightingale. Don't do it. Don't do it. And the reason for that is because if you need any part of her kit, you can get it as an F2P. You can get it as an F2P. So we'll go through it all. And if I sound like I'm not having a good time with this, I am. I really am. I like this stuff a lot. But sometimes I think about servants that I like and how I wish they had like a little bit of a buff or were a little bit different. And it kind of makes me sad. Have a good one, Otto. Her third skill is a buster up for 50% over 3 turns. That sounds great. It is. If you need a single turn version of that, Shakespeare exists. And if you need extensive turns, then you can use Shakespeare plus Leonidas for multiple cases. The second skill, I understand the spirit of it. It's to make her survive longer, and it's a lore-based thing. It just doesn't really do much. The first skill got a great buff. It was healing 4,000 for 5 turns. This never should have been a 5-turn cooldown. It never should have been a 5-turn cooldown. They could have made this a 3-turn cooldown. She is an SSR. It's okay. It would not have made her demonstrably more like game breaking or anything. It would have made her like a little bit more attractive and appealing to use, but it's like whatever. And then on her skill upgrade, debuff immunity for 3 times over 3 turns. Instant kill immunity is whatever. The instant kill immunity is 1 time 3 turns as well. But the heal and the turns didn't change. Going on down, she does have a great NP. She does. It used to just be party debuff removal, party HP heal, and then reducing enemy NP damage for 1 turn. Now you add reducing enemies attack by 50%. That is substantial. It's nice. From a utility perspective, this is not a part 1 or new player's servant. It's just not. It's not. You spilled Blaha Blast on it, Ragdoll? Nice, dude. She's one of these kinds of servants that, like, if you put her in the back line and you've got an MLB scope on her and a plug suit to bring her in, and you pop this NP right at the right time, it can absolutely change the outcome of whatever challenge quest you're doing, right? But if you're thinking about which of all of these servants to go for, she shouldn't even enter your thought process. And I think that's well understood. I don't think that's like a hot take or anything. So it is what it is. Another one that is probably generally well understood when it comes to like whether or not you should be taking them and why and all that. We do have Berserker Vlad. We'll talk about him in 2 different contexts. One, he does have a 20-30% battery. He does have a really good chance, a really great chance, if I'm being honest, He has a great chance to reduce the enemy's NP gauge by 1. And then on this one, it's shapeshift. It used to be shit, and then they gave him attack up, which is what he really needed, right? So 20 to 30% defense up. The attack up was 20 to 30%. Is very nice. 5-turn cooldown, pretty standard. 2-turn downtime, not bad, not bad. Third skill was Guts, 1 time, 5 turns. Again, we talked about this before. This like early insistence on trying to make Berserkers survive longer when it didn't work anyway. When what they should have been doing was just making them into damage machines so that you could justify using them over Lu Bu. This was part of that. This was part of that. Well, then he got this third skill. At least it's stackable now. At least it's stackable. So, gut status for 1 time, 1 turn, and then another guts, which is, again, part of that stack. But the NP gain over 3 turns, although it is only 20 to 30%, that goes so nicely with the fact that he has a 10 hit arts NP. 10 hits arts NP. Really good. It gets a lot better. His scaling was 600 to 1,000. That's not appealing, honestly, for what he was. It's not appealing. Then he gained 15 stars. Then they said, well, we'll try to fix him. So they gave him 900 to 1,500%. They increased the stars. They said, well, you know what? That's probably not enough. We probably didn't do enough to fix this guy. So then they did the right thing and reduced the enemy's arch resistance for 3 turns. They made him into a true looping monster. 1,200 to 1,800% crit stars. He is honestly now what he should have been anyway. This is an SSR. One thing that I've never understood about early SSRs is that a lot of them didn't feel like SSRs. A lot of them didn't have the gusto, the impressiveness, the bravada of an SSR. Nowadays, when a servant is an SSR in FGO, largely speaking, the last 2 years, a servant that comes out and is an SSR, they feel like it. You notice it, right? Whether they are more prominent, like a Muramasa, a Castoria, a Koinskaya of Light, a Melusine, Oberon, whether they're less prominent, Veritra, Lady Crane, pick any of them. They still have something that like makes them feel like an SSR. There is obviously one exception, and you can't talk about him without talking about her. When it comes to his contemporary here, she had a 20% gauge. She had all of this, the self-guts status. It's stackable. Defense. The regeneration buff for heal, and then it's the party. And then it removes their debuffs every turn for 3 turns, which is super cool, right? Then we got this buff here, which was the on attack activate buff with buster cards, which is great because she has a triple buster deck. But then you got their NP, and it was too similar. It was too similar, right? 9 hit arts NP, 900 to 1,500%, increasing her own NP damage. When she came out, a lot of the discussion was like, oh shit, sorry Vlad. And she's like, she's okay. Like, to me, her best asset is going to be this removing parties debuffs every turn for 3 turns, because this does have significant challenge quest implications due to the fact that she's also single target. She's not going to hold you back, right? Well, all of that in concert made Vlad a little bit redundant. And then they said, you know what, we'll take care of that. So they reduced arts resist on the NP, buffed his damage even more. He is now the single target arts looping Berserker. She's great, she's fine, but she does have different utility than him. You can't really like write off a 3-turn debuff removal. That's insanely good. Not to mention the heal. It's pretty nice to have that on a servant in the game. So I'm not going to sit here and say that she's bad or anything, but this isn't about her, it's about him. However, that's a ways away, and it's well after this SSR ticket. So if we're talking to players who are considering, hey, who should I take? I don't have most of these servants. You know, on this SSR ticket, you know, who should I really be considering? Berserker Vlad is nowhere near up there. He's not up there. It's unfortunate. He's a cool character. He's cool in Apocrypha, but he's anywhere close up there. Nowhere close up there. So, I would not put him above. I mean, shoot, dude. I would put him above. My question is whether I put him above Arjuna or above Europa. I think I gotta put him above Europa, but still below Arjuna. Still below Arjuna. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Now in the future, hey, it's March 28th. FGO fans, here's your SSR ticket. Here's your options right here. Kamehameha, right? Then sure, he's way higher up. He's way higher up. Because not only do you get to go through all those upgrades that will give you Saint cores, due to them being rank ups and interludes and shit, but everybody's got a Castoria on their friend list, and everybody's got Mozart on their account. So Paracelsus, Mozart, friend Castoria, Berserker Vlad, good job. You just won. You just won. Good job. You did it. But these are not the conditions. These are not the conditions. So he is down here. He's towards the lower end of this tier, in my opinion. It is 2022. It is going to be April of 2022. Potentially blazing hot take here. I do not recommend Tamamo for people to take on this SSR ticket if they need, to make a decision amongst a lot of these, right? If they need to decide amongst a lot of these different characters, right? I don't recommend Tamamo. However, in the absence of all other characters, in a vacuum, I'm gonna put put Jeanne d'Arc up here. I'm putting her above Tamamo. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. Are her skills ass? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Her skills are terrible. She is a ruler, which for a newer account, aka someone who doesn't have most of these characters, she is a ruler class, which is big. We don't get a welfare ruler until Summer 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. Her NP is absolutely broken good, regardless of whether or not you have Castoria. If you get Castoria, you have Jeanne d'Arc already. You have MASH. Congratulations, you're probably going to win whatever fight it is. Might take 722 turns, but you're probably going to win the fight. Probably going to win the fight. Her skills do hold her back, but when it comes to Jeanne d'Arc, you really just can't overstate the impact of her NP. There is no one who's going to use her NP before the interlude. I'm not even going to discuss it. I'm not going to look at it. It's not a thing, right? The stun is gone, but she removes the party's debuffs. She heals them. That's based on overcharge. And she has invincible for 1 turn. And then she increases their defense by a healthy amount. 5% is pretty massive, right? No, it's fucking bad. She does technically increase their defense, but that's not what you use this for. It's to save yourself from an NP, remove your party's debuffs, heal. This has such wonderful synergy with the upcoming Castoria, and the reason I keep bringing her up is because all of you will be able to grab Castoria off your support list. It's gonna happen, right? Friend or otherwise, right? Can you remove her stun with other characters? I mean, here's the problem with her stun when it comes to removing it with other characters. Before this, it was just a 2 turn, so you would be using someone else's debuff removal. You would be using someone else's debuff removal for that single turn stun on a servant that's not there to do damage anyway. So she was going to essentially just like consume that usage when it just wasn't really worth it. You know what I mean? When we look at Castoria with Jeanne d'Arc, this is another thing that like I kind of hope people come to terms with. You hear Castoria talk about, not her, but you'll hear people talk about her being a power creep to Jeanne d'Arc, and I just do not agree. I just do not agree. In a situation in which you can only bring one servant to a fight, and you have to decide whether it's Castoria or Jeanne d'Arc, yeah, you're gonna take Castoria, but you get to take 5. You can take 6 with the support. It doesn't have to be a one or the other. It doesn't have to be a one or the other. Because of that, with Jeanne d'Arc, and Castoria, again, a support Castoria, because this is the SSR ticket. We're considering who to take. You can bring Castoria. She'll provide the attack that Jeanne d'Arc doesn't provide. She'll still remove their debuffs just like Jeanne d'Arc. She cannot heal, though. She cannot heal, though. And she gives this fantastic buff. It's N attacks over 3 turns based on overcharge. With this, you can bridge the gap between Castoria's NP and Jeanne d'Arc's NP. Not to mention the fact that Castoria has the targetable evade on her 3rd skill. They just work so well together. They work so well together. If you want to go absolute stall comp meme express, you throw in a Himiko and you never, ever, ever lose, ever, ever. Like, ever. Like, I mean, come on. Unless they have buff strip. That's it. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about like, well, you know, rip Jeanne d'Arc, here's Castoria, and that's just such a small brain take. It's such a small brain take. They are so great together. They're so great together. You are going to see me use my NP5 Jeanne d'Arc and at least NP2 Castoria in fights just to say, hey, I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die. I don't have to try to win because I'm not gonna die. Again, unless they strip buffs or have, even if they have like damage over time debuffs, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So when we talk about Jeanne d'Arc, it's natural to talk about Castoria because they do have similarities, but I don't agree that there's like some kind of, you know, debilitating power creep that keeps Jeanne d'Arc from being relevant or whatever. You know what I mean? For that reason, I do put her at high B tier. Now that being said, if I'm someone who needs to look at all of these characters and determine who I need, obviously waiver comes first. I put the elite single targets up at the top, and the reason for that is because you cannot replicate what they do at the lower tiers. You cannot replicate what all of these AoEs do on the B tier, right? And you certainly cannot replicate what Jeanne d'Arc does in the lower tiers, you know, bronze and silver servants as well. But is she more valuable to an account that needs all of these servants, or doesn't have all of these servants? You know, is she more valuable to those kinds of accounts than a Napoleon, an Artoria, Mordred, Achilles, Anastasia, Drake, Ozzy, Sanzang, and Enkidu waiver? No, she's not. She's not. And that's okay. That's okay. Do I recommend her over the likes of Shangyu, Tamamo, and Artemis? Yeah, I'm sorry, but I do. I like all of them, but I do. I do. An account that doesn't have any of these or doesn't have most of these is going to benefit massively from bringing her to challenging content in the future and grabbing a support Castoria. It's going to happen. Even if you don't have access to a support Castoria, like if there's a forced support fight, bring your mash, use your Jeanne d'Arc. You can put one of like 7 different other servants in there with them, and you're going to do well in that fight. You're going to succeed. She really is a good servant, and again, I just kind of push back on this whole power creep thing. It's essentially like saying, well, part 1 mash got power crept by Castoria. No one says that. Why? Because it's dumb to say that. They do different things. They do different things, you know. And that's where I would put Jeanne d'Arc as well in that. So now we have 2 very, very difficult servants to place for very, very different reasons. We'll start with Jinako. Jinako is an interesting one because she does 2 things primarily. One is utility, the other is damage. I know, hot take, crazy, big brain stuff right there, right? But the utility aspect is the fact that she will tank things, she will provide party benefit, and in doing so, she will ensure that the rest of your party can succeed. Her star weight is only 51, which is nice because she does have a star gen per turn. It's only 5, but it's better than nothing. She'll charge your party's gauge. It's on her first skill. That's really, really nice. Her Bond CE, we'll get to that where me, but it's really good as well. And she gives an attack buff. It's 10 to 20%. It's okay. It's okay. It's not bad. Her second skill is a target focus. We love that. Anytime you can get that in this game, it's huge. She has a 1000 damage cut for 1 turn, and then her own attack goes up by 30% at level 10 for 3 turns. Well, she already increased attack for the entire party for 10 to 20%, so it's a 50% 1-turn attack, 3-turn attack buff, provided you use these 2 at the same time. The cooldowns, I never understood this. I was certain these cooldowns would be higher. 5 on her second skill, 6 on her first skill. That's not bad at all. Not bad at all. On her third skill, a targetable, invincible, increase in NP gain is 20-30%. Again, we talked about that earlier. But she seals their skills, which is okay. There are a lot of times in which I've used this and thought to myself, well, gosh, I can't use their skill. Use their skills before you use this skill? It only seals their skills for 1 turn. Like, this is not rocket science. I thought it was going to be a bit more of a challenge to navigate, and it's just truly not. This essentially just does not exist. Just use their skills before you use this skill. It's that simple. It really, truly is. A 3-head. So the NP gain is on the 20-30%. Again, only a 5-turn cooldown. It is not bad at all. Her magic resistance, debuff resistance there is 20%. That's really good. That's nice. Because of someone like this who has a target focus, having this amount of natural debuff resistance is great. It's fantastic. Love to have that. On her NP, she gives herself another invincible for 1 turn, provided you did use that targetable one at a different time. She recovers her own HP based on overcharge, 2,000 to 6,000. That sounds like a reasonable amount, but she has the highest HP in the game at base level. It's absolutely absurd how high her HP could go. Absurd. This is a 22,975 at level 120. There, you could do 25k with her, depending on the CE, the foes. I mean, at least. That's like Genshin Impact numbers. No, she has the highest base HP in the game. The highest. It's crazy. She has the highest HP values out of all servants. She has the lowest attack out of all 5-star servants, but she has a 3-turn, what did we say, 50% attack buff when you use her first 2 skills together. Has the same attack values as Bedivere at minimum. So, I think it's pretty great. She also is an extremely niche class, Moon Cancer. That's pretty cool. But that also kind of holds her back. We'll talk about why. So the HP recovery is cool. The damage to all enemies is almost always going to be neutral damage. So the fact that she has low attack plus neutral damage anyway, when we talk about the 1 of 2 uses for her, the damage dealing aspect does start to fall off a little bit. Not to mention the fact that for newer players or players who don't have all of these, so they're probably at least a less developed or newer, more F2P account, they're just not gonna have 17 gold caster monuments and 17 lancer monuments to spare. They're not gonna have 17 caster pieces. Like, maybe they do, but they should be using those on Hans. You know what I mean? It's whatever. They should be using these on Q. So that being said, as most extra classes are, her skills are very accessible due to being mostly lottery related. Same as rulers. It's nice to have this, right? But we have to, like, take a step back away from, you know, the utility and away from all of this to look at some larger truths about her that we don't have to look at with other servants. Now, when we talk about an extra class like a Jeanne d'Arc, she's an extra class that has resistance to most classes. That's great. That's awesome. That's a plus. It's a benefit. And she's not there to deal damage. She doesn't try to deal damage. So we don't care that she would deal neutral damage. When it comes to someone like Jinako, she's not going to take reduced damage from most enemies. She's going to take neutral damage from most enemies. Not to mention the fact that I don't know I've ever fought a group of Avenger enemies. And if I have, I don't recall them. It probably exists at some point, but it's extremely niche, right? So what's her true placement for this? Not an actual tier list, but for who you should take on your SSR ticket as someone who is genuinely deliberating amongst all of those, right? Amongst all of these servants, you're trying to decide, you know, who should I take and where do they rank? Jinako is nowhere near the top. She's just not. She is not down here with Nightingale and Osakabe Hime, though, because she does provide, even at neutral class damage, great tanking utility. Fantastic tanking utility. So she goes at least D tier, right? She goes at least D tier. She has a target focus. She has invincible for herself. She can target someone with an invincible. She can provide some stars per turn, heal herself, right? There's a lot of utility to be had as a tanker. For me personally, I would put her right up here at C, but at the bottom of C. I put her at the bottom of C, and that's because she has the highest HP. She has the ability to tank. She has the target focus, the invincibles. There's a lot of great utility to be had there. But when we talk about like what holds her back, she's a Moon Cancer. You can get a Moon Cancer for free. I think it's 1 rare prism later on down the line in JP. But BB exists. And if you're trotting her out into most fights in which you need a tank, you don't need her at high skill level. You don't... Honestly, you don't even need her to be level 90. You don't even need her to be level 90. Do they have the chart here the Game Press has? They may not. You don't really need her to be level 90. You don't need her to be 10, 10, 10. If you get her up to max ascension, or just get, honestly, the final skill unlocked, you have a lot of her utility in hand. And for someone who's deciding amongst all of these servants, I think that's appealing enough to keep her out of the doldrums of the very bottom tiers. I'm not going to recommend her by any means whatsoever. But she reduces her enemy's defense by 30% for 3 turns. The damage is whatever. But she'll heal herself, which is the biggest thing after the defense reduction. And she'll stay invincible, which means that she can get these low cooldowns, these very attractive low cooldowns coming back. In the interim, she'll charge your party's gauge and increase their attack. She can give someone invincible and make them more likely to get their NP. And she has the target focus as well. She's a very, very good utility servant. A very good utility servant. She's not like universally going to be a massive boon to a lot of players. But you can do it. You can do it, right? We showed off what she could do yesterday. I think it was against Demeter, when we created that like infinite stall team with her and Jeanne d'Arc and Mash. Which would they have eventually won? Sure, yeah. Was it going to take forever? Yes. Which is, it just kind of is what it is. So I put her here. I'm pretty comfortable with that. She's not bad. She's not necessarily going to like, you know, absolutely break the game wide open for someone considering all of these, but it is what it is, right? Oh, that's right, Bond CE. We did mention her Bond CE. We didn't look at it yet. She gains 8 stars per turn, and she recovers the party's HP by 300 per turn. Every turn that she's on the field. This is one of the rare Bond CEs that's legitimately worth using. We talked about other effects being good. Other Bond CEs have decent effects. They have good effects. That's fine. But, like, this is worth using. This is legitimately worth using. I'm probably going to backline Jinako in the next lottery just to get this Bond CE. It's that good. So all in all, you have a servant who doesn't need to be high. You don't even need to get up to these skill levels, honestly. You don't need the mirrors, the scarab, all that stuff, right? Relatively accessible and relatively useful from a utility perspective for a lot of players. But is she absolutely going to break the game open for you? No, she's not. She's just not, right? Last but not least, we have Jack. Now, the reason Jack is last is because there is a huge gap between an NP1 Jack on a newer account versus a Jack on an established account or a higher NP Jack, and someone who's able to get her NP going more often and knows when to use her, right? We'll go through her kit. It is a very good one. Star absorption is middling, slightly lower than middling. 5 hits on the quick cards. Those are what you need to use. On her skills, evade for a turn, which is nice, but the quick up is 30 to 50%. 6 turns is 1 turn higher than I would like. These are 1 turn effects. She's an SSR. This can be a 5-turn cooldown. It could be a 5-turn cooldown. On her second skill, she will remove 1 enemy's buffs. Their entire, like, they're all gone. They're all gone. We talked about critical attack chance. That's a waste, but she removes their buffs, right? On her third skill, she recovers an ally's HP 500 to 2500. It is a 4-turn cooldown. That's very attractive, and it's a pretty decent heal at that same level 10. Pretty good, pretty good. She has Presence Concealment A+, which increases her star gen rate by 10%. That's massive. And then we get to her NP. Defense ignoring, great scaling 1200 to 2000, and then own damage against female enemies goes up 50% to 100% depending on overcharge. Then we get the upgrade. 1400 to 2200%. The own damage against female enemies is big. Now, if you're wondering, hey, how often am I going to use? Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. You knew that already. This is a gacha game. Turns out there's a lot of female characters in a gacha game. And some of these are like legitimately difficult fights. Some of these are legitimately difficult fights, especially ones that she does not have class disadvantage against. So I know it's crazy to think that a gacha game would have a bunch of female characters in it, but she does have a lot of advantage against a lot of characters and enemies in the game. Most importantly, this thing right here, barf. So she starts to make up for, I know, right? Female characters. She starts to make up for how inaccessible, at least at first, in the first 2 turns, her NP can be. Now that being said, her NP gain plus 5 hit quick cards, like those are, you can get there. You can get there, right? You can get there within a few turns. There's really no question about that. Not to mention, she pairs very well, hot take, with Paracelsus because he does give a guts and he gives NP gain up. If he is out there, gives her those, and then just like kind of goes away or whatever, it's great. It's really great. That being said, we know that she ignores defense. We know that she does debilitating damage. She creates stars better than most servants in the entire game. And she has a special damage niche, right? However, 30 dust per skill, 45 bones, 44 bones per skill, and 15 of these shits right here that you just don't get a lot of these when you are a younger account, right? I don't think that's enough to like actually nerf her. But I don't put her in the same tier as a Sanzong, an Enkidu, or an Ozzy. Jack can heal someone in your party. That's fine. Jack can strip away buffs. And that's great. It is. And she can create more stars than like should be, possible, right? Like it's insane. However, it just... without some kind of like massive buff to a skill, she's not going to enter that A tier for this specific tier list. Now, if we're talking about tier list in general, hey, is Jack good? Yeah, Jack's really damn good. She's really, really, really damn good. But on this specific one, which is a player saying to themselves, hey, I need to decide between all of these. All of these. She's not that high. She's not that high. I would, however, put her on that B tier. I would put her on that B tier. I would put her... This is tough. Somewhere around here. She's above Scheherazade. I don't know if she's above or below Napoleon. I don't know if she's above or below Napoleon. That's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. Actually, the real question is she above or below Artoria? Let's take a quick look at Artoria before we make that determination in stone, right? So, Artoria right here. You know Artoria, right? Charisma B, 18%, 5 turns, 2 turns of downtime. Second skill was a 50% mana burst. It is now 50% mana burst. And then this insane skill, which now increases her NP damage. That's huge because it's 20 to 30% multiplicative on the same skill. And it changes all of her cards to Buster, so she easily gets a Buster chain on her NP. Third skill used to be stars, 5 to 15. That was not a 5-star skill in my opinion. It became a 20 to 30% battery with also 5 to 15 stars. 5 turn cooldown. Going on from there, she's got, again, great debuff resist. We love to see that. And then it was a 300 to 500% standard scaling, plus charge her own MP gauge afterwards to 400 to 600 with the same MP charge afterward. She is a knight. She's going to need a lot of dragon fangs. She needs 36 of them, 44 proofs. That's a lot. That's a lot. But we're already done looking at her kit. It's extremely straightforward. It is a very straightforward kit. If you need her to survive, you are fucked. If you need her to provide healing or anything like that, like, it's just not going to happen. That's not what she's here to do. That's not what she's here to do. She is here to hit, and then she's going to keep hitting. She wants to just use Excalibur over and over and over again. So when it comes to this kind of value to this kind of account, I actually would put Jack above Artoria. I'm pretty comfortable with that. The only reason I don't put her above Mordred is because of the buff that Mordred gets on her Star Gather. So Mordred right here on the third skill, or second skill. Yes, second skill here. Star Absorption for Buster cards for 1 turn is fairly high. She already has a decent Star Absorb. It's pretty middling, but like, it's good enough with this to be decent. Crit damage is up 30 to 50%, and she gains stars. If you have Buster cards of hers, you're probably gonna crit with her next, and she's gonna do increased crit damage. Not to mention the Buster up. It sucks it's only 1 turn, but it is what it is. She'll then remove her own debuffs, charge her gauge 10 to 30%. Sorry, 10 to 30%, and then have a 50% defense up for 1 turn. Again, that's encroaching on you can tank an NP in the face type of territory. Not guaranteed, but it depends, especially if it's class advantage. 3 to 500% standard scaling, extra damage to Arthur enemies, and then charges her own NP gauge afterwards, 10 to 30%. You're gonna overcharge. A plus was the buff, 400 to 600%, and then the NP charge became on par with others at 20%. Again, we talk about knights, we talk about these dragon fangs right here. Other than that, though, I find her skills to be more accessible than other SSR sabers. Yes, it's a lot of fangs, but it's not a lot of other things, and I don't mind that too much. This is her recent glasses application to her costume, and then she has one of the best costumes in the game, which has no bearing whatsoever on her rank in this tier list. However, it's still the utmost of good civs. I'm going to go ahead and look away from that, or I'll forget where I am. So I'm comfortable with Mordred being here. I'm comfortable with Jack being right below, and I'm comfortable with Artoria and the others being below that. I think Jack's in a good spot there. She is an elite single target servant on any account, but for this specific tier list, she does fall behind a Sanzong, who has more accessibility, has a target focus, party utility, party-wide debuff, immune for 1 turn, an Enkidu, who's a master soloist, 10,000 HP heal, evade, can hit pretty hard, and then Ozzy, party-wide NP charge, hits hard as hell on his NP with an NP seal on that as well, not to mention his future buffs, which provide this sunlight field as well. So, yeah. There are some things to keep in mind about a lot of this. Sometimes a servant is good in a vacuum, but not good in this situation. Sometimes a servant is stronger than someone else who's higher on the list than them, but they have more downtime in between where they shine. So, for instance, when I'm using a Shang Yu to crit, that's well and fine. When I'm using him to NP, that's well and fine. If I'm not doing any of those things, he's dead in the water. He's dead weight. He's dead weight. Inversely, when I have a Jeanne d'Arc on the field, if she's not NPing and she's not using her skills, that's okay, because she's still a ruler class. She's still a ruler class. She's not a liability per se. When it comes to the difference between a lot of these same class servants, Altera, Artoria, Mordred, a lot of this has to be looked at as downtime, because people who are looking at all of these servants to be considered probably don't have 3 MLB scopes. Probably don't have 3 MLB scopes. So they probably have to consider the downtime in between some of these NPs, right? When it comes to someone like Altera, Saber and Mordred, although I do put Altera below the other two, And although Artoria probably does more NP damage than Mordred, the in-between time, I would rather have Mordred. I would rather have Mordred on that in-between time. Artoria is going to hit hard as hell on that NP, and if you can get her back to her fairly reasonably soon, then you're going to do great things. But when it comes to that in-between time right here, Mordred can remove her own buffs, survive with a 50% defense right there, and then charge her gauge as well, right? She can crit hard as hell 3 times over 3 turns. 3 times over 3 turns. Now, yes, this is a 1-turn Buster card absorption on these stars. And yes, this is a 1-time Mana Burst A type of thing. But when you talk about the downtime in between, I simply would rather have the higher crits in between with survivability and buff removal. Nothing against Artoria. I know she's super popular for people who like vanilla, boring individuals. I'm just kidding. Calm down. But we're looking at a middling. I've never been a fan of charisma, just to be honest with you. As a skill, it's okay. Even charisma A+, it's okay. It is what it is, right? On this second skill, like, this is a single turn, and that you're probably going to want to use this single turn with her NP as well, right? And then the third skill, which was the battery and stars. I just would rather have Mordred in between these NP turns rather than Artoria, and I think that's something to consider when it comes to a player who needs to determine which servant they will take on this ticket, because they don't have any of them or most of them, right? Any of them or most of them. So it's nothing against any of these others. Again, I like Osakabe Hime. I have a raised and skilled Nightingale on 3 of the 4 accounts. So all 3 accounts that could have a Nightingale, because the Bazet account cannot have a Nightingale. It has her, and it has her skilled and level, and I use her. I have Bradamante. You know, I've used Bradamante. I've used Jinako. I've used literally all of these servants. So when the question is, hey, all of these are options. I don't have all of them. Maybe some, but not all. Who should I take? I stand by this list. I do. I stand by this list. So somebody asked higher up. Let's say you have NP2 Waver, NP2 Sanzong, NP3 Enkidu, and NP1 Ozzy. Is it worth getting another Ozzy? No. We're picking up Drake or Achilles at NP1. It's absolutely worth picking up Drake at NP1. I love Achilles. I do. He's my favorite servant in the game. For a new servant at NP1, getting Drake is a boon. It's a boon. It's huge. You already have NP2 Waver, NP2 Sanzong, and NP3 Enkidu. Ozzy at NP1 is simply not going to take over the reins from those two on like a Berserker fight or a class neutral fight. If he has class advantage, like against a caster, there are plenty of F2P options that can step up and take the reins instead of your NP1 Ozzy if you don't want to use him, right? That being said, Drake is borderline unparalleled in a lot of ways, and outright is in many ways. You're talking about a 50% battery rider with ignore invincible and ignore defense who has attack up, NP damage up, and buster up in the future. Like, what more could we want from her? And she gives a bunch of stars afterwards, so if you don't kill, she can crit the next turn because she's a rider with high weight. Like, she's really, really, really good. She's really good. So now I would definitely recommend taking the Drake instead. A lot of people, yeah, Ryu Hurt. A lot of people think Artoria is better than Mordred. This is not, I want to stress this again. This is not a who is better than who. This is situational, and that situation is on the SSR ticket for players who are deciding amongst all or most of these. Who should they take? If they are deciding amongst all or most of these, they probably don't have a very attractive option otherwise for all of most of these. So I'm talking about welfares or 4 stars or other SSRs, maybe limited ones. So if they're genuinely thinking between all of these, hey, I could legitimately benefit from all of them. Again, I would stand by Mordred over Artoria for that specific situation, that specific player. If it's a tier list, then it's a totally different thing. If it's just an objective, like this is in any situation, then yeah, like a lot of this would look a lot different. On a neutral tier list, like any situation, Tamamo's going to be way higher. She's got great utility and great survivability. She does a lot of things for a lot of servants, a lot of challenge quests, etc. Right? But for a situation like this, no. I disagree, Ryan Long, wholeheartedly. I went into it earlier. I don't know if you were here or not. Tamamo is one of the worst picks that a player who needs all of these or is considering all of these could take. I will show once again what we're talking about when it comes to this. There is absolutely no way could I ever recommend to a newer player or a player who needs all of these servants or is considering all of these servants, no way, shape, or form am I going to recommend someone who needs their first and third skill maxed out, requires 24 pages between those two skills, like across those two skills, I should say, per skill, 30 seeds, 15 lamps, and 44 bones. That is absolutely insane. It would be irresponsible for me to recommend Tamamo over nearly any of these servants for a player who needs all of them or is considering all of them. It just is, there's no possible way. None. You can replicate, not duplicate, but you can get similar output on this skill right here for one turn with Mozart. On the first skill, you can get similar output with Bartholomew because he does have attack up and NP damage up, which is multiplicative here. Although this is multiplicative with the arts up, it does not change the fact that you will need to sell your entire family to get this accomplished as a newer player. I was like my third year and was still working on Tamamo's skills. Like, it's insane. So, no, under no circumstances do I recommend a newer account or a younger player or someone who's thinking about all of these. Under no circumstances do I recommend Tamamo. I would actually like to put her lower, but her utility is great if you do get her and get her up and everything like that. No, it is insane to get, Amrit. It is insane to get. It is. Because all of this is not in a vacuum. All of this is not just her. Hans needs these mats too. He needs these caster gems. Other servants need these bones. Mash needs seeds. Pages are needed all over the place. Like, a lot of the starter 4-stars need lamps. It's absolutely not in the cards whatsoever. Yeah, so I stand by this. As far as, like, you know, what's the significance of this? Like, who's this guy if you've never seen this or whatever? I've been playing this game across 6 or 7 different accounts over the years. I currently have 4. I've had 3 accounts in the past that got abandoned or new phones due to life circumstances at one point or another. Deployed twice. On both times, when I came back, we got new phones, and I didn't even think about using an old app that I hadn't been able to use the entire time I was gone anyway, because it's not like I could play FGO while, like, you know, camping in Iraq. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That being said, this is exactly LDL. This is not about who is better or worse. This is extremely situational. And I know it's hard to, like, glean that and kind of step away with it, you know? But it's important to keep in mind. It's important to keep in mind. Because by no means am I saying that, you know, Karna is better than Tamamo. And by no means am I saying that Scheherazade is better than Tamamo in a vacuum or whatever. I'm not saying that. For this situation, I do say that. For this situation specifically, I do. So, as always, I will take a screen grab of this, and it will go on, or in our Discord, where you can all discuss it and tell me how stupid I am, and I can continue to knock.